Welcome to Spotlight Stories NFL. Every team, every story, under the spotlight. We're not just talking about scores or highlights. Here, we dig deep into the history, the legends, the heartbreaks, and the future of all 32 NFL franchises. From the founding days of the league to the stars lighting up the field today, we uncover what makes each team unique. Every video is a journey. We'll take you through a team's origin story, their greatest triumphs, their lowest moments, and the iconic players who defined them. We'll highlight the Hall of Famers, the legendary coaches, the unforgettable games, and the controversies that shaped their legacies. Plus, we'll uncover 5 little-known facts about the franchises that will have you yearning for more. Then we'll bring you into the present, breaking down last season, examining the draft, and exploring what's next. Whether it's the dynasties of Green Bay, the heartbreaks of Buffalo, the dominance of Kansas City, or the underdog stories still being written, every franchise has a tale worth telling, and we're going to tell them all. So if you're a die-hard fan who wants to relive your team's history or just love the game enough to learn about every team in the league, you're in the right place. Please remember to like and subscribe to Spotlight Stories NFL, where every team has a story and we shine the light on all of them. Let's shine the spotlight on the Miami Dolphins, a team that combines sunshine, teal jerseys, and one of the most fascinating histories in the NFL. From perfection in the 1970s to decades of heartbreak, they've been a team defined by extreme highs and frustrating lows. But here's the question: can the Dolphins finally turn their flashes of brilliance into sustained greatness? Today, we shine the spotlight on Miami, their origins, their legends, their struggles. We'll learn 5 interesting facts about the Miami Dolphins franchise and what lies ahead in 2025. The Miami Dolphins were born in 1965 when lawyer Joe Robbie and entertainer Danny Thomas secured an AFL expansion franchise, making them the first major professional sports team in the state of Florida. The team began play in 1966, struggling in their early years before joining the NFL in the 1970 AFL-NFL merger. By the early 1970s, under head coach Don Shula, the Dolphins skyrocketed to prominence. In 1971, just their second year after the merger, Miami made it to the Super Bowl, a rapid rise for such a young franchise. A year later, in 1972, they cemented their place in history with the only perfect season in NFL history, going 17-0 and winning Super Bowl VII. They followed that up with another championship in 1973, becoming only the second team at the time to win back-to-back Super Bowls. The Dolphins have appeared in 5 Super Bowls overall: 1971, 1972, 1973, 1982, and 1984, winning 2. Despite not winning since the 1970s, they remain one of the league's most recognizable franchises thanks to their history and iconic players. Statistically, the Dolphins have been a model of peaks and valleys. They've made the playoffs 23 times in franchise history, captured 13 AFC East Division titles, and rank among the top half of NFL teams in all-time victories with over 480 wins. Their all-time record hovers just under 50%, reflecting how their 1970s dominance and Marino's 1980s fireworks were countered by long droughts in the 2000s and 2010s. The franchise has also been home to some of the NFL's most iconic single-season performances. In 1984, Dan Marino became the first quarterback to throw for over 5,000 yards in a season, a record that stood for nearly 30 years. In the 2020s, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle combined for over 3,000 receiving yards in a single season, showing that Miami's tradition of explosive offense continues. Culturally, the Dolphins' impact stretches beyond the field. Their no-name defense of the 1970s remains legendary, and the team's bright aqua and orange uniforms made them stand out instantly. Their fan base, known as Dolphins, is among the most passionate in the NFL, filling Hard Rock Stadium every season and carrying pride for both the team's past glory and hopes for the future. From being Florida's first big league franchise to becoming a global brand through their perfect season, the Dolphins' history is one of the richest in the league, a blend of unforgettable highs and decades-long hunger for a return to greatness. Fun fact number 1. Did you know that Dolphins once played a playoff game in a monsoon? In 1982, during the strike-shortened season, Miami hosted the New York Jets in the AFC Championship game, better known as the Mud Bowl. Heavy rains turned the Orange Bowl field into a swamp, and Jets running back Freeman McNeil, the league's leading rusher, couldn't find traction. Miami's defense dominated, winning 14-0 to advance to Super Bowl 17. When it comes to NFL uniforms, few stand out quite like the Miami Dolphins. From day one, the franchise leaned into the tropical identity of South Florida, adopting a bold aqua and orange color scheme that instantly separated them from the league's more traditional palettes of navy, black, and red. That look wasn't just different, it became iconic. The original uniforms featured white helmets with a leaping dolphin wearing a tiny football helmet of its own, set against an orange sunburst. That playful design, introduced in 1966, remains one of the most beloved logos in NFL history. Combined with the team's aqua jerseys and white pants, the Dolphins created a look that reflected both the ocean around Miami and the vibrant energy of the city itself. Over the years, the Dolphins made subtle tweaks but rarely strayed too far from their core identity. In the 1970s, during the dynasty years under Don Shula, the team cemented the classic look, aqua or white jerseys with bold orange and aqua striping on the sleeves and pants. When fans picture Larry Csonka barreling through defenders or Bob Grease managing the perfect season, they picture him in those uniforms. The 1980s and 1990s brought slight modifications, including updated striping patterns and a brighter shade of aqua to match the flash of the Marino era. Dan Marino's record-shattering 1984 season, complete with his classic aqua jersey and white helmet, burned the Dolphins' look into the collective memory of football fans everywhere. In 2013, the Dolphins unveiled their biggest redesign, modernizing the leaping dolphin logo by removing the little helmet and streamlining the dolphin's body. The sunburst was softened, and the logo took on a sleeker, more corporate look. Uniforms were simplified too. Striping was reduced, and aqua became the dominant color. The change was polarizing. Some fans loved the clean, modern feel, while others longed for the charm and character of the original logo. By 2018, Miami responded to fan demand by reintroducing elements of the classic look. They darkened the shade of aqua, brought back more prominent orange accents, and leaned harder into their retro identity for special throwback games. Those throwbacks, white helmets with the original Pat the Dolphin logo and striped aqua jerseys, are widely regarded as some of the best-looking uniforms in the NFL. Players have even said they feel different running out of the tunnel in the retro kits. What makes Miami's uniforms unique is how perfectly they match the city's identity. In a league dominated by colder, darker palettes, the Dolphins look tropical, bright, and fast, just like the style of football they've always aspired to play. Tyreek Hill streaking down the sideline in aqua and orange looks exactly the way the franchise has always wanted to be remembered. Vibrant, bold, and unforgettable. Simply put, the Dolphins don't just wear uniforms. They wear a brand that's instantly recognizable, one that screams South Florida every time they take the field. Fun fact number 2, did you know that the Dolphins once wore all orange uniforms and fans hated them? In 2016, Miami debuted their Color Rush uniforms, bright, head-to-toe orange. While they were unforgettable visually, the look was divisive among fans and players alike. Many called them pumpkin suits, and they were retired almost immediately. The Miami Dolphins reached the absolute peak of NFL history in the early 1970s under legendary coach Don Shula. No discussion of the Dolphins, or of football greatness in general, is complete without mentioning the 1972 season, still the only perfect season in NFL history. That year, the Dolphins went 14-0 in the regular season, then plowed through the playoffs with victories over the Browns and Steelers before capping it off with a 14-7 win over Washington in Super Bowl VII. What made that team so remarkable wasn't just the record, it was how balanced they were. The no-name defense, anchored by Nick Buonaconti, Manny Fernandez, Jake Scott, and Bill Stanfill, suffocated opponents, while the running back trio of Larry Csonka, Mercury Morris, and Jim Kayak pounded defenses on the ground. Bob Grease, the steady hand at quarterback, orchestrated it all, and Shula's discipline made the machine nearly flawless. The perfection carried into the following year when the Dolphins went 12-2 in 1973 and then steamrolled through the playoffs to repeat as champions, defeating the Minnesota Vikings in Super Bowl VIII. That back-to-back stretch cemented Miami as the NFL's new dynasty. Csonka, The bruising fullback was even named Super Bowl MVP in 1973, rushing for 145 yards and 2 touchdowns in a dominant performance. In total, the Dolphins appeared in 5 Super Bowls: 1971, 1972, 1973, 1982, and 1984. While they haven't won since their back-to-back triumphs in the 1970s, those early championships remain defining moments in NFL lore. To this day, every time a team threatens to go undefeated late in a season, the surviving members of the 72 Dolphins famously toast champagne, reminding the league that perfection still belongs only to them. But Miami's legacy doesn't stop with the Shula-era championships. In the 1980s, the Dolphins drafted quarterback Dan Marino, and the franchise instantly gained a new identity. Marino wasn't just great, he was revolutionary. With one of the quickest releases and strongest arms in NFL history, he transformed the passing game. In just his second season, 1984, Marino threw for 5,084 yards and 48 touchdowns, shattering records and setting a standard that would stand for decades. That year, the Dolphins went 14-2 and reached the Super Bowl, though they fell to Joe Montana's San Francisco 49ers. Even without a ring, Marino's career remains one of the greatest in NFL history. He was a 9-time Pro Bowler, a league MVP in 1984, and retired as the NFL's all-time leader in passing yards, 61,361, and touchdowns, 420. For nearly 20 years, Marino gave Miami a chance in every game, and his highlight reel throws made the Dolphins must-watch football. Though his lack of a Super Bowl win remains a sore spot for fans, his impact on the game is undeniable, and he remains the face of the franchise's modern era. The Dolphins' legendary high points, then, are twofold: the unrivaled perfection of the 1972-73 dynasty and the individual brilliance of Dan Marino, who carried the franchise into the spotlight throughout the 1980s and 1990s. Together, they represent the heights that still define Miami's identity: chasing perfection, chasing greatness, and striving to bring another Lombardi trophy back to South Florida. Fun fact number 3, did you know that the Dolphins once drafted another famous Hall of Fame quarterback and traded him away? In 1967, Miami drafted Purdue quarterback Bob Grease in the first round, a move that worked out spectacularly. But in 1979, they also drafted a young quarterback named Joe Montana, only to trade the pick to the 49ers. Montana went on to become a 4-time Super Bowl champion. For every dynasty moment, there's been a crushing drought, and for the Miami Dolphins, the lows have been as defining as the highs. After their back-to-back Super Bowl wins in the early 1970s, Miami remained competitive, but the magic never returned. Even with Don Shula still at the helm, the Dolphins struggled to maintain championship consistency. By the early 1980s, the team's perfect season heroes were aging, and the roster needed a new face. That face came in 1983, when Miami drafted quarterback Dan Marino. Marino was electric from the start. In 1984, just his second season, he shattered NFL passing records, throwing for over 5,000 yards and 48 touchdowns, marks that wouldn't be surpassed for decades. He made the Dolphins an offensive juggernaut and turned Miami into must-watch football. But here's the cruel irony. Despite his Hall of Fame career, Marino reached the Super Bowl only once, in that record-breaking 1984 season. There, the Dolphins were overpowered by Joe Montana and the San Francisco 49ers. Marino never got back. For 17 seasons, Marino carried the Dolphins, piling up over 61,000 passing yards and 420 touchdowns. Yet he retired in 1999 without a single Super Bowl ring. For fans, it was the ultimate heartbreak, having one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game and never giving him the supporting cast or defense to finish the job. The post-Marino years were even darker. Miami descended into quarterback chaos, cycling through more than 20 different starters between 2000 and 2019. Names like Jay Fiedler, Gus Frerotte, Chad Henne, and Ryan Tannehill filled the gap, but none came close to matching Marino's brilliance. Coaching instability only made things worse as the team burned through leaders at an alarming rate, searching for stability that never came. Then came 2007, the lowest point in franchise history. Under head coach Cam Cameron, the Dolphins stumbled to a 1-15 record, one of the worst seasons in NFL history. The lone victory came in overtime against the Baltimore Ravens, and it was celebrated like a Super Bowl. in Miami simply because fans feared the humiliation of going winless. The years since have been defined by inconsistency. In 2008, the Dolphins shocked the league with an 11-5 record using the innovative Wildcat offense, but it proved to be a flash in the pan. Playoff appearances remained scarce and postseason wins even rarer. For Dolphins fans, the frustration lies in the contrast. They've tasted perfection, they've watched Marino redefine quarterbacking, and yet for nearly 50 years they've lived without another Lombardi trophy. The drought has become one of the league's longest, and perhaps the biggest shadow looming over one of football's most storied franchises. The Miami Dolphins' history isn't just about teams, it's about the iconic players who defined entire eras of football. It begins with Don Shula, the winningest coach in NFL history, who not only built the Dolphins into champions but reshaped the modern NFL. Alongside him in the dynasty years were Bob Grease, the Hall of Fame quarterback who guided Miami to back-to-back Super Bowl wins, and the legendary backfield that became the heartbeat of the perfect season. At the center of that backfield was Larry Csonka, the Hall of Fame fullback who punished defenders with his bruising, straight-ahead running style. But he wasn't alone. The Dolphins had a three-headed monster in the running game: Mercury Morris, the speedy, elusive halfback who could break a game open with one run, and Jim Keek, the tough, dependable grinder who was equally effective catching passes out of the backfield. Together, Csonka, Morris, and Keek formed one of the most balanced and feared rushing attacks in NFL history, carrying the Dolphins to their perfect 1972 season and back-to-back championships. The defense matched the offense's firepower. Nick Buonaconti, Manny Fernandez, Jake Scott, and the rest of the no-name defense embodied teamwork and discipline, shutting down opponents when it mattered most. The next era belonged to Dan Marino, the quarterback who changed the game forever. With his rocket arm and lightning-quick release, Marino revolutionized passing, setting records that stood for decades. In 1984, he became the first quarterback to throw for over 5,000 yards in a season, along with 48 touchdowns, an unheard-of feat at the time. Though Marino never won a Super Bowl, he remains one of the greatest quarterbacks in history and the face of the Dolphins for nearly 2 decades. And Marino had weapons. The Marks brothers, Mark Clayton and Mark Duper, became one of the most electrifying wide receiver duos the league has ever seen. Their speed and chemistry with Marino created one of the most unstoppable passing attacks of the 1980s. Clayton finished with 84 career touchdowns, while Duper surpassed 8,800 receiving yards, both becoming fan favorites and Dolphins legends. On the defensive side of the ball, Miami produced more all-time greats. Jason Taylor, with his 139.5 sacks, terrorized quarterbacks throughout the 2000s and became a first-ballot Hall of Famer. Zach Thomas, the undersized but brilliant linebacker, racked up over 1,700 tackles and became the heart of Miami's defense for more than a decade, finally earning his Hall of Fame induction in 2023. Other legends include Hall of Fame receiver Paul Warfield, Pro Bowl tackle Richmond Webb, defensive disruptor Manny Fernandez, and modern standouts like Cameron Wake and cornerback Xavier Howard. And of course, there's Ricky Williams, the mercurial but supremely talented running back who rushed for over 1,800 yards in 2002 and became one of the most memorable figures in franchise history. Today, stars like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are adding their names to the Dolphins' legacy, blending blazing speed with highlight reel plays, echoing the flash and firepower Miami has always been known for. From the bruising Csonka Keek Morris backfield of the 70s, to Marino and the Marks brothers redefining offense in the 80s, to Jason Taylor and Zach Thomas anchoring the 2000s, the Dolphins icons reflect every era of the franchise: tough, innovative, and unforgettable. Fun fact number 4. Did you know that Dan Marino almost played baseball? Before becoming the face of the Dolphins, Dan Marino was actually drafted by the Kansas City Royals in the 1979 MLB draft as a star high school shortstop. He chose football instead, a decision that forever changed both the Dolphins and the NFL. After Shula, the Dolphins cycled through coaches searching for the next leader who could bring them back to glory. Jimmy Johnson, Dave Wannstedt, Nick Saban, Cam Cameron, Tony Sparano, Joe Philbin, and Adam Gassi all came and went without delivering long-term success. Today, the Dolphins are led by Mike McDaniel, hired in 2022. Known for his creative offensive schemes and quirky personality, McDaniel has energized the team with a wide-open, speed-based attack. His leadership, paired with a roster built around explosive playmakers, has given Miami its most optimism in years. Fun fact number 5. Did you know that Mercury Morris and Larry Csonka were the first running back tandem to hit 1,000 rushing yards in the same season? In 1972, not only did the Dolphins go undefeated, but they also became the first team in NFL history to have two 1,000-yard rushers in a single season. Csonka bulldozed for 1,117 yards, while Morris added 1,000 exactly. That backfield balance was key to their perfection. In 2024, the Dolphins went 9-8, missing the playoffs in heartbreaking fashion. Quarterback Tua Tagovailoa put up strong numbers with over 4,000 passing yards, but injuries once again raised questions about his long-term durability. Tyreek Hill continued to dazzle as one of the most dangerous wide receivers in the league, while Jalen Waddle proved a perfect complement. Defensively, however, Miami struggled with injuries and inconsistency. Despite moments of brilliance, they couldn't close out games when it mattered most. Looking to shore up their future, the Dolphins focused on both trenches and defense in the 2025 NFL Draft. Their top pick went towards strengthening the offensive line, ensuring better protection for Tua. They also added a physical cornerback and depth at linebacker, trying to rebuild a defense that hasn't lived up to expectations. Analysts viewed the draft as solid if unspectacular, filling key needs rather than swinging for flashy stars. Still, for a team built on speed, the moves were seen as a necessary step toward balance. Heading into 2025, the Dolphins are one of the NFL's biggest question marks. With Tua, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle, the offense has the firepower to compete with anyone. But the offensive line must hold up, and the defense needs to return to form for Miami to be a true contender. Vegas odds makers project the Dolphins around 9 to 10 wins, putting them right in the thick of the AFC playoff race. But with the Bills, Jets, and Patriots all rebuilding or contending in different ways, the AFC East is as unpredictable as ever. For Miami, the ceiling is a deep playoff run. The floor is another year of wasted potential. From Don Shula's perfect season to Dan Marino's brilliance, from decades of quarterback turmoil to the dazzling speed of Tyreek Hill, the Miami Dolphins remain one of the NFL's most fascinating teams. The question now is simple. Can Mike McDaniel and Tua Tagovailoa finally bring Miami back to the Super Bowl stage for the first time in nearly 40 years? Or will the Dolphins remain trapped between flashes of greatness and unfulfilled promise? One thing is for sure. When the Dolphins are thriving, the NFL feels faster, flashier, and a whole lot more fun.